I fucked up again, guys. I went ahead and I watched a YouTube channel. I watched a YouTube video about Destiny, about Season of the Witch, but mostly because they were talking about the final shape, and the thumbnail tempted me in with a picture of the exotic Kostov, what I interpret it to be the exotic Kostov. Yeah, and here's the thing: is that this used to be a person that I would watch on the weekly for their recap of all the Bungie news that came out, and sometimes there would be some build videos, and sometimes there would be, some lore dumps and stuff like that. But yeah, for the last couple of seasons, I have done my measured best to stop watching YouTube, because all it did was make me angry. And yeah, I fucked up. Now I'm angry, and specifically for this one reason. Not 2 seconds after they talked about how the devs were planning to make the Final Shape raid be an integral part of the story dump for the campaign, that your campaign was going to culminate in the raid, rather than the raid just being like a tacked-on activity to, fulfill that box. They were going to include the raid as part of it, and then they said something about how they also plan to make that final information about the narrative be available to players who don't do the raid. I am, for one person, not a raider anymore. I used to be. I was really, really big into Vault of Glass and Crota's End. I even went so far as to do multiple runs for the Taken King, Kingfall, and Wrath of the Machine. I even tried the Leviathan raid a few times and got frustrated because it became, there's this policy, there's this idea that 20% of your effort should generate 80% of your return. And that's supposed to be a good measure of what most game developers would call a positive gameplay loop. But Bungie, for the last couple years, has been pushing it. 80% of your effort gives you 20% of your gain. And that's really because Bungie's Destiny is not a game. It's not a product. It's a service. It's a floor show you pay for on a regular night, every night, the season pass kind of situation. And that's fair, but it does present the challenges of the fact that investors don't look at how many units are sold because it's not a product. They don't look at how many players are logged on because it's not a product. They look at how many hours are being played. So investors care more about hours over players actually engaging in the content. And the only way you're going to keep players engaged in the content is by making that content more difficult, or making that content take longer to complete. I mean, we got the Crota's End raid down to a little less than an hour sometimes. Back in Destiny 1, that is. And we were so good at it that we eventually we had a clanmate, or actually a teammate, get so good at it and was able to, predict almost all of the possible outcomes so efficiently that he could basically solo it, and we had flawless carries. It was fun. And no scamming, no cheats or exploits like that. The only thing that somebody had to make sure was that they build themselves in such a way that they couldn't die. So, if things got hot, you fell back and fell away and stuff like that, and then that was it. That was what we, and that, to me, didn't feel cheap. That didn't feel like a diminished experience. It wasn't like, oh, wow, that's it. I'm not one of those players. I've never looked at I've had problems with the campaign before. Like, the Red War, I was like, really, this is all the time we get to spend without our light? I wanted to play a whole season without having, Ghost revive me all the time. I wanted death to reset the encounter, Legend of Zelda style. I wanted that. I wanted to play a ghostless, or a lightless guardian. And I only got to experience that for a little less than 90 minutes, honestly, and I was playing pretty casually. That, to me, would be challenging. That, to me, would be the game going hard. not by, not like bloating the enemy HP, not by, overcomplicating the mechanics to de-shield a boss. None of that shit is actually, in my opinion, challenging. It's tedious. It's meticulous. The raids should be like a Rubik's Cube. There's one solution. All 6 sides have a solid color. But you can get there with any number of moves that you want to choose, or you could use the unlocked algorithm, as it is, basically, because that's how you solve the Rubik's Cube. You solve it like a math problem. And that's how you'd solve the raids. You'd solve the raids like a math problem. So when somebody says that the game has gotten soft, I'm like, you know what? How about this? Why don't you go play in a clan where most of the people are only concerned about doing strikes in Crucible? You go raid with them. Why don't you go, and how about this? Not play a Titan, not play a Warlock. Play a Hunter. And don't play the new hotness. Don't play Stasis, don't play Strand. Just, play some basic fucking, Solar Arc or Void class. If you want fucking hard mode, do that. You want hard mode, go ahead and fucking solo the Nightfall on Heroic. Or Master, or whatever. What is it? The Nightfall. Wrong. Nightfall. Yeah, it's Heroic. Or you could go ahead and put it on Legend. There you go. Go solo the fucking Nightfall on Legend. You think the game's too soft. And just remember that it is subjective. Just because you got this as your day job and you do this on the daily and you have a community that is, hundreds of members deep and, with all kinds of... You basically have access to all the content you could possibly want. And just because you could blast through it in less than a month doesn't make it easy. It just means that you have that much extra access because of who you are, because of your connections to the community, because of the gear luck that you have, the luck in the gear drop that you have. I mean, seriously. And like I said, I fucked up. I shouldn't have even watched that video. I should have stayed in the fucking Shire and just, been accepting of the fact that, hey, there's going to be a raid in Lightfall. Chances are it's going to be the one place we're going to get all the lore dub. But guess what? I can read it on a Reddit or a wiki page. And I think that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. The reason why I stopped buying into this game was because they were making everything so grindy. And they were asking us for 80% of our time for only 20% fucking, satisfaction. And I don't ask for much. I just ask to come to this game and enjoy the power fantasy of playing, a space wizard, for the most part. A gunslinging space wizard. That's what I came to Destiny for. It is, because Destiny's a science fantasy. It's a fantasy game. It's not a science fiction game. Just because there's aliens and ray guns and extraplanetary, locations is bullshit. It is basically a fantasy. It is a D&D. It is 5th edition D&D. For the most part, it really is. If you brought the two mechanics side by side, you'd see it. You'd see it too. Anyway, that's all I got to share. I thank you for stopping by. In the meantime, before you go and say something's too hard or too difficult, take a close look at your perspective and figure out the reference points, and then maybe try it from that other perspective. Just because. It's fun that way.